Okay. I hope you can see a title slide that says Access Navigator software. Am I still sharing properly?
Oh, yes, yes, it looks
Okay.
perfect.
Okay, great. Yeah, my name's Heidi Kester, and I'm gonna talk today about a project we're working on called Access Navigator software with the goal of improving alternative access services. I do have a team of folks working with me. Key members of that team include Susan Fager, Jessica Gormley, and Eric Jacobs. And I'm going to briefly, oops, there we go. Just going to briefly introduce myself. I can't see everybody who's on the call, but I see a few familiar names. So some of you, we already know each other, but for those of you who have never met me, I'm the president of Kester Performance Research, and based for many years in Ann Arbor, Michigan, but I now live in Asheville, North Carolina. And the mission of the company is to improve the way we design and deliver assistive technology. And I specifically focus in the area of computer interfaces for people with physical disabilities. And when I say computing or computer, I'm referring to all kinds of information technology or phones, laptops, tablets. So just keep that in mind. This project is part of the NIDLR-funded RERC on AAC. We have a number of related projects, and this is one of those. Okay, so a lot of these, there's going to be a couple introductory slides. I would imagine everyone on this call is familiar with alternative access methods, but sometimes the terminology gets used in slightly different ways. So I'm just going to spend a couple minutes kind of grounding how I use these terms. So when we talk about alternative access methods, we're talking about helping people with motor impairments, controlled devices like computers, tablets, smartphones, speech generating devices. And these are approaches that accommodate an individual's specific physical disability and ideally allow for efficient and comfortable use of any computing device. So I'm showing a slide here, a picture here of Stephen Hawking, who's using his SGD here mounted on his wheelchair, and he's using it with a single switch that he twitches with his cheek in order to write and speak and do all of his work. So there are, as you know, many types of access solutions available that already exist, that are very refined and have particular applications, strengths and limitations, including a range of things from built-in accessibility settings within the device, no special hardware needed, to add-on devices like alternative keyboards, mouth sticks or styluses, different kinds of pointing devices, including hands-free mice, ways of typing with pointing devices like a cursor on screen keyboard, speech recognition for those who have the right type of speech that the recognizer wants to recognize, eye gaze systems, so basically move the cursor as your eyes move, and switch access, which we talked about in the Stephen Hawking slide. Still in development, but available are brain-computer interfaces, et cetera. So a whole set of things that are available for practitioners to choose from and from clients to choose from when trying to find an access method that's going to work, or a combination of access methods that are going to allow that person to do what they want to do in the most efficient and comfortable way possible. So there's a lot of stuff available, which is wonderful, but there are some challenges. And sometimes those challenges end up with people not always getting the methods that are the best fit for their needs. They may get something that's a okay fit, or some of the time good fit, but not always the best method, best fit for their needs. There can be a few reasons for that. Just listing a couple of them here. Sometimes the AT provider doesn't have the needed knowledge and skills. This may be a type of individual who has needs that you just haven't worked with before, and it can just be a big challenge. It can be difficult to carry out a systematic evidence-based assessment process, especially if you have limited time, limited resources. People have tried to develop tools to help with that, but they can be cumbersome or time-consuming, or they just don't fit the situation. So it's like we've been working on these issues, but there still can be challenges in just that process of helping somebody find the best alternative access method for their needs. So our goal in this project is to more effectively leverage the alternative access technology that's already available, just so that more people get what they need. And improve the service provision process. Can we make it more effective, efficient? Could it even be fun? As I mentioned in the previous slide, there are some resources and frameworks for alternative access assessment, but those sometimes do not get used. And limited research suggests that if we do follow a systematic assessment process, that actually can be beneficial to our clients and students, reducing abandonment, increasing satisfaction. Okay, so our way of approaching this in this project is to develop, well, a new tool. So we've said, all right, the people have been working on tools. They don't always meet the needs. Let's keep trying with a software tool that maybe can help people follow a repeatable systematic process. And this is a web-based piece of software that leads teams through the stages here, roughly. So kind of a simplified diagram over here on the right side, but completing the initial assessment, trying to identify some initial access solutions, running trials with those solutions, and selecting from what we learn what seems to be a good fit, or do we need to specify new solutions and keep trying. And this tool incorporates performance measurements as well, if you want them, for more evidence-based decision making. So this will be a freely available tool when it's complete. And a theme throughout this presentation is that we do need your feedback. And I'm going to show you the tool, or at least some examples of the tool in a minute. Just to give you the sense of what led to the development of this, or the early stages of the project, we don't just sit down and say, we want to develop a software tool, let's just come up with an idea of what it should be and build it. We spent quite a long time in a user-centered design process before we built any kind of software at all. So that takes the form of a product definition in which we interview a number of users, both practitioners who are the main sort of drivers of this, main users of the software, but also the clients who are going to be part of the team. They're going to be indirectly using the software as well. And looking at previous tools, so that's a benchmarking thing. Like I mentioned, there's a bunch of tools out there, many of which are not software tools, but are kind of service delivery models. Let's make sure we understand those and incorporate those ideas into our tool as applicable. So from that, you come up with sort of a basic understanding of what you want this product to do, this software to do. Again, before we build anything in like final software code, we can design what it's going to look like and feel like in what are called wireframe designs. And you may be familiar with this, I'm not sure, but the point is just to kind of draw it out and show the sequence of screens and how they're going to fit together, and do that in a way that people from your different user groups can experience that and give you feedback on that. So it's a lot easier to just basically draw a screen than it is to implement it, thoroughly in code So we want to do that and be able to change it in response to user feedback in a more nimble way. So that's the initial design phase. And we conducted a couple of user studies on those wireframe designs and iterated them several times in that process. So I just wanted to give you the sense of kind of what goes into building this. Some of the highlights we learned in that user-centered design phase, in the interviews, we actually had 46 different themes emerged and those play into specific requirements that we want the app to deliver to people. I think one of the key surprises, in a way, although in retrospect, maybe it shouldn't have been that much of a surprise, is that practitioner anxiety can be intense. Like this is a quote from somebody, this feeling of, I should know this, but I don't. So here I am working with a student who has complex physical impairments, has a lot of different needs, and we need to come up with a solution, and it's fairly high stakes, and it can feel like pressure to some folks, and at least in our interview sample, wanting to come up with something quickly, but it's a difficult problem to solve. So those are two, clashing realities in that. So we want to, in addition to all kind of the details of like what it should do and what service delivery model it should support and all this, we want the overall feeling that this app ideally could take some of the worry out of assessments and have a feeling of a welcoming feel, a reassuring as much as possible, a sense of exploration and fun. That's our ideal situation. When we look at the wireframe designs, and the 12 practitioners reviewed those, we did get good feedback from folks, and that's really about all I need to say, I think, at this point. Just that it seems like it's going to be easy to use and covers the important aspects. After we've done that, we have a development phase in which there's different aspects to building a web app. I don't need to go into the details of this, but just suffice it to say that that takes a fair amount of work to actually build even the minimal kind of feature set in the Access Navigator app. And I think the rest of the time here, I'm going to spend just giving you a sense of what it looks like. So this is a series of a few screenshots. You will see, so I'm showing you here this window. So here's the app running in my browser. The screenshot of the app running in my browser. And you'll see it's a pretty bare bones kind of visual design at this point. So this is kind of the early stage of the visual design, but the basic like workflow and feature set is all implemented and actually runs. So if you try not to be too put off by kind of the black and white text heavy design, but that is what it looks like right now. And that hopefully will change in the next couple months. But essentially there's 4 main tabs here. Getting started, we're going to start with gathering background information on our individual. So in this case, I've logged in as me. I have a student, Emma, that I'm working with. You can certainly use this anonymously, but if you do want to personalize it, there are facilities to let you log in and call yourselves by a name while you're using it. So within gathering background info, we're going to look at what activities does Emma want or need to do. So that's under the category of just defining the goals and needs. Like, what are we trying to accomplish in this assessment? There are also questions which I don't have screenshots for here, but that relate to the contexts. So where Emma needs to use this, what kinds of environments, what kinds of personal position she's going to be in. Is she going to be on the go with it? Those kinds of questions. What's the background to what's already been tried? or what she's currently using, and let's make sure we understand that and how well that is going or not going for her. And in each section, there's kind of a review that says, okay, you've input this, is this what you feel good about it? Before you go on to the next section, you can kind of just double check that. The next main tab relates to evaluating the abilities. So we've gathered a bunch of background information, and now we're going to work directly with Emma and see just what are some possible physical access sites that Emma might be able to use. And the idea here is to just give, throughout this app, we tend to use a fairly large number of checkboxes just to sort of help people think through, like, what are all the different body parts that could be used, or actions that could be used, and just think about those. There's a section for physical assessment. That's probably the most intensive, and then visual, a few questions about that, making sure we don't ignore possible visual issues that Emma might be having. Similarly for language and cognition, and then anything else about Emma's strengths or limitations that might be relevant to, again, focusing on alternative access to computing devices. So that's the basic tab on evaluate abilities. And generally you would try to do this in the sequence that I'm describing, but it does not make you do it in that sequence. So if you do find that you want to skip around, you're allowed to do that in the interface. If we've gathered our background information, we've evaluated, at least at a basic level, Emma's abilities, we may be in a position to start to choose some candidate methods to try. And it presents you with kind of a little catalog of, these are not specific products, but they are representative. So, under trackball, it's not going to list, the 76 different trackballs that might be available. But it does give you some information about why you might want to choose a trackball for somebody or what it tends to be well suited for. And there are methods that relate to pointing devices, keyboards, touchscreen access, speech recognition, eye gaze, switch access, and there's a section on low or no tech access. So if you want to be working with someone where, our access method is really going to be like partner assisted scanning or something where there's not really a device, but there's a person as kind of the interpreter for the individual, you can also do that within this system. The basic sequence for test driving solutions is just pick something you want to try. And I'm just going through the subsections here. So this will kind of walk you through these steps when you use the interface. You set it up. So, it's not enough to just say, I'm going to use an alternative keyboard. It's like, well, how are we tilting it? Are we putting it midline? Do we think it's better on the right side for this person? The details of setting it up, how are they going to actually hit the keys? Is this with some kind of typing sticks or knuckles, maybe head pointer? Those details are significant, and you need to kind of think through what is the setup and let the system know how it's going to be set up. And then we go ahead and try it, which I'll show you in a second. And there's a provision for rating how things went. Both the student or client gets to rate, gives a number of stars to how they think the trial went. And the practitioner also gets to input some details about the ratings. I think the next slide shows something about the try it phase. So in trying it, this is a short-term trial within this system. So something that we're going to do right now while I'm sitting here with Emma, choose an activity for this test drive. So we could choose some, I'm sorry, when I move my trackpad, sometimes I lose my slide. We can choose an activity that's built into the system and actually will take measurements. So let's say we're working on text entry with Emma. There's a built-in typing test. So she can enter copy some text, and it'll give you information about the speed and accuracy for that. Similarly, for pointing and clicking, there's a test for that. And if we had chosen a switch device to be used, there's a built-in test for that. You're not limited to the built-in activities. If you want to choose something else that Emma really loves and is super motivating, and you want to get started with that, you're certainly free to choose that as well. Once we've done the activities, here I'm showing, actually, we've done 2 different test drives with 2 different methods. So the trackball received a rating from Emma of 3 stars. The practitioner rated it at a 75% success rate. And behind this more, there are a whole set of other things that you could, as a practitioner, you could note specific things that you noticed, like she seemed to get tired by the end, or she didn't really understand the task, or just things that might have contributed to, like, why wasn't she 100% successful here. So this is just kind of a very brief overview screen, but underneath you can also give it more information if you want. At this point, if we've done 2 test drives and we have one that Emma seemed to like, it's not 5 stars, but it's 4, and gave her 100% success, compared to the trackball, we might start to wonder if, hey, maybe this dot tracker would be a head-controlled pointing device. Maybe that's going to be a decent solution for her. So you can go through a stage in the app of actually selecting dot tracker and setting some goals for, maybe we want to do a longer term trial of that. Maybe we're ready to procure one, or we need to get one from the lending library. The next steps there would be unique to your situation, but you can also enter those in so that somebody else who comes into this or sees the report will know what you're planning to do and how you're planning to move forward. So that is the basic gist. And I do want to mention that as we're seeking people to try this out, there's a couple ways that that's possible. One is that we are running an evaluation study. So that's a formal protocol where we need participants who are practitioners who work in alternative access for people with motor impairments, and then you as the practitioner would recruit or ask a client or student that you know who needs alternative access and do like a mock assessment with them. So that's a 1-session thing where you run through the software with that client, and then we ask you both a few questions about how that went. I could also potentially set you up with some informal use of the current prototype to get just your feedback, and you may decide as a result of trying it informally that you do want to participate in the evaluation study, or you don't, but I could set up folks with a link. But the best way to do that would probably be to just have a brief kind of email exchange about what your plans are, or what your setting is like. And I'm happy to talk further. My email is here, hhk@kpronline.com. And or if you prefer to set up a phone call for more information, I'm happy to do that too. That is basically what I wanted to present, and I'm not able really to monitor like the chat at the same time. Maybe there's some questions, or we can have some Q&A here, Naomi. What's the...
Yes, if people want to turn on the mics, please feel free. We do have one question in the chat. Is this something that we can preview already without being part of the trial?
Okay, I see the question, yes. Yes, so Kim, if you wouldn't mind sending me an email, and I can set you up with a link to the software if you'd like to try it. Or you can put your email message in the chat and I'll follow up with you that way. Does that work for you? Okay, I see it here. And I will do that when I will do that sometime today. And thank you for your interest. Okay, I'm seeing a couple other. Naomi, should I save this chat or
Oh, yes, please save it.
okay. So I'd hate to write this down wrong.
That would probably be the easiest. Anyone else have any questions? Feel free to turn on your mics also. I have a question. Once it becomes live, would there be a cost for this?
No, I meant to say that at the beginning. Yeah, it's free and will remain free. It's not like, oh, it's free for a while and then we're gonna, I don't know, do something, do something other than that. So there will be no cost.
Oh, wow, that's great.
So the challenge there is having it be used enough that it's worth maintaining, because these things, yes, we have funding for now, but going forward, we may not have the same level of funding that we have for developing it. So, but yes, it doesn't mean we would start charging for it. It just may mean that if we are not successful in building enough awareness that people are using it, we don't know how long it's going to be out there, but at least for a couple of years for sure, we'll give it a go and try to, hopefully it'll meet a need and then we'll continue providing it for free.
Wow, that's great. It seems like a really helpful tool. Okay, we have another question. When is it expected to go live?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we're kind of in this transition where it is live, but we have not made the link publicly available just because it's still kind of immature. So we don't want to give the impression that like, hey, this is good and use it, and then people maybe have a less than ideal experience with it, they'll just forget about it and never try it again. So we have to decide when we feel it's mature enough to be broadly made more broadly available. And I would expect that to be within, 4 to 6 months. Part of that depends on what we learn in the evaluation study. So as we get a few people trying like this very early version, if it seems like it's pretty robust and isn't like breaking when people try to use it for real, then we'd make it available sooner. So it's not a hard and fast answer, unfortunately, but I hope that gives you a feel for it anyway.
Yeah, thanks. Any other questions? Any thoughts on, any comments about the tool? What did people think? Is this something you guys think you might use? Okay. Since there's, yes, definitely would share with folks I work with.
Okay, and that's Valerie, who I do have Valerie's email. Kim and Lori. So Lori, if you either want to send me an email or drop your email in the chat, we can follow up and it can it's possible it could go live for you, you know, sooner than just generally. Thank you. Okay, I see that one.
Any brave souls wanting to turn on their mics and share what they thought?
I do appreciate the chat notes are very helpful, so I appreciate those too.
Yes.
And in fairness, well, not to talk over people who are trying to be brave, but showing you a few screenshots here and there, you know, doesn't necessarily give you like a feel to have a full opinion about it, but maybe enough to say, okay, I'd like to actually see this, and then form a more definite opinion about it once you've tried it yourself.
Agreed. Good point. Okay, if there aren't any more questions or comments, I would like to thank Heidi for doing this tech spotlight and sharing the information about Access Navigator. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Naomi. Thanks everyone for coming. Appreciate it a lot. I look forward to following up.